I died at my daughter's wedding venue, then woke up 20 years in the past. I died at my daughter's wedding venue, my 55-year-old body finally giving out after 72 hours of non-stop work. As I finished adjusting the waistline on Madison's final bridesmaid dress, my heart seized like an invisible fist was crushing it. I collapsed on the floor of her new condo, and the last thing I saw was my daughter frowning as she kicked aside the water glass I'd knocked over, complaining about her expensive carpet. "Mom, are you seriously causing problems right now?" Those were the last words I heard. When I opened my eyes. Again, the familiar crack in the ceiling made me burst into tears. This was my bedroom from over 20 years ago, the apartment I'd shared with my husband Robert when we first married. "Sarah? What's wrong, bad dream?" Robert's warm arms wrapped around me. I turned and clutched his shirt, sobbing uncontrollably. Robert, my husband who died of liver cancer when I was 48, was lying next to me, alive and breathing. "What's today's date?" I asked, trembling. "March 15th. "Why?" Robert fumbled for his glasses on the nightstand. "Go back to sleep. I'll make Madison breakfast. Been so picky lately." "March 15th. 3 months before Madison's SATs. I rushed to the bathroom. The mirror showed a face 20 years younger. No eye bags from chronic sleep deprivation, no deep wrinkles from decades of worry, no thinning hair from chemo treatments. I'd been given a second chance. Back to when Madison was 17, back to the most crucial turning point of our lives. In my previous life, today Robert and I had gotten up at 5:30 a.m. to prepare 3 different breakfast options because Madison complained she was tired of the school cafeteria. Robert had taken time off work to accompany her to practice exams while I'd stayed up finishing a work project before rushing home. To make her brain-boosting fish soup. We'd given everything so she could get into a good college. She did get into an Ivy League school, but when we dropped her off, she pretended not to know us because we looked too working class. Later, she studied abroad, draining the money we'd saved for Robert's cancer treatment. At her wedding, her in-laws deemed us beneath them, so she only allowed me backstage to manage her dresses. I wiped my tears and composed myself. If God was giving me a second chance, I wouldn't raise an ungrateful daughter this time. In the kitchen, Robert was making eggs, with oatmeal and milk on the stove. Madison said she wanted a Western breakfast but is worried about calories, so I made whole wheat toast and low-fat cheese, he said, dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep. I also made her favorite bacon and egg sandwich as backup in case she changes her mind. "That's enough," I interrupted calmly. "She's 17, not 7. If she wants something specific, she can make it herself." Robert froze. "But her SATs are coming up." "SATs aren't an excuse to act like a princess." I pulled regular bread and milk from the fridge. "Starting today, we live like a normal family. She can eat what we eat or go hungry." Right on cue, Madison's door slammed open. My 17-year-old daughter emerged in her school uniform, face full of irritation. "Dad, is my breakfast ready? I'm going to be late." Seeing the simple meal on the table, her pretty face immediately soured. "This is it?" I specifically asked for eggs Benedict. "All my friends have." "Then don't eat." I sat down and poured myself milk. "From now on, you eat what's available." Madison's eyes widened in shock, as if seeing me for the first time. In my previous life, I would have immediately apologized. And promised to make her favorite tomorrow. Now, I simply took a bite of toast. "Mom, do you know how important today is? It's my practice SAT. So?" I looked up at her. "Does that mean the world revolves around you? Your father worked until 2 a.m. and still thought about making you breakfast. You haven't even said thank you, just complaints." Robert shifted uncomfortably. "Sarah, she's under a lot of stress." "Who isn't?" I countered. "We work to support this family. Isn't that stressful? If she can't handle basic self-sufficiency, she'll be useless in college." Tears immediately welled in Madison's eyes, her go-to weapon. In my past life, I couldn't stand seeing her cry and would abandon any principles. "Dad, look at Mom." She turned to Robert for support. Surprisingly, Robert hesitated, then sided with me. "Madison, your mother's right. You need to learn to appreciate what your parents do for you." Madison's expression morphed from shock to anger to resentment. She grabbed her backpack and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. "Was that really okay?" Robert asked worriedly. I squeezed his hand. "Trust me. We've been doing it wrong. If we keep spoiling her, we'll ruin her." Through the window, I watched our daughter's angry silhouette disappear down the street. This time, I wouldn't chase after her to apologize. Chapter 2. That evening, Robert sat on the couch, hands clasped against his forehead, glasses reflecting the lamplight so I couldn't see his eyes. We'd been talking for 2 hours about Madison's future, our marriage, everything except my rebirth. "Sarah, what's really going on?" he finally asked, voice full of confusion. "Yes, Madison has some attitude, but what teenage girl doesn't? You were too harsh this morning." I took a deep breath and decided to share a partial truth. I had a dream, a long, vivid dream. In it, we spoiled Madison rotten. She grew up selfish and cold. She wouldn't even visit when you were dying. Robert's hands trembled. "It was just a dream." "No, it wasn't just a dream." I opened my phone notes and typed a series of numbers. "These are next week's lottery numbers. You can verify them. Also, in 3 days, there will be a food poisoning outbreak at Madison's school. 17 students will be hospitalized." Robert's eyes widened. "How could you possibly know that?" If these two things come true, will you believe me? Will you help me change how we raise Madison? I gripped his hands tightly. I can't watch our daughter become someone who doesn't understand love or gratitude. After a long silence, he finally nodded. At 9 p.m., Madison came home, 2 hours later than usual. I was in the living room reviewing documents and didn't look up. Dinner's in the fridge. Heat it yourself. She stood frozen in the entryway. I glanced up to see her red, puffy-eyed, clearly been crying. Mom, I bombed my practice test. Her voice was accusatory. Because I didn't eat properly this morning. Low blood sugar. I couldn't focus. In my previous life, I would have been consumed with guilt and immediately made her a late-night snack. Now, I simply asked, and? She raised her voice incredulously. So it's your fault. Our teacher says proper nutrition before exams is crucial. I put down my papers and met her eyes directly. Madison, tens of thousands of students take these tests. Not everyone has someone serving them eggs Benedict. They manage fine. Why can't you? She sputtered, then turned to Robert emerging from his study. Dad. Listen to what Mom's saying. To my surprise, Robert hesitated before responding. Madison, your mother has a point. You can't blame others for everything. Madison's expression was priceless shock, anger, then self-pity. She stomped her foot. You're ganging up on me. She fled to her room, slamming the door. Robert looked at me worriedly. Are you sure this is right? She'll adapt, I patted his hand. Teenagers are like wild animals, they constantly test boundaries. The less consistent we are, the more they push. Getting water at midnight, I noticed Madison's light still on. I was going to walk past but heard her suppressed giggles. Pushing the door open a crack, I saw her on her bed, phone in hand, face glowing with a sweet smile, definitely not one meant for parents. Mr. Harrison, I miss you too. She whispered into the phone, fingers flying across the screen. My parents have gone crazy. They're being so mean. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. Mr. Harrison? Her homeroom teacher? The married 40-something man? In my previous life, I'd had no idea. Madison only mentioned after college that she'd had a crush on her teacher, claiming it was one-sided. Clearly, it was much more. I cleared my throat and pushed the door open. Madison nearly dropped her phone. Mom. Don't you knock. It's midnight. School tomorrow. I pretended not to notice her panic. Phone. Now. Time for bed. No. It's my privacy. Not in my house. I held out my hand firmly. Hand it over, or I'll discuss with your teacher what you're doing up so late. Her face went white. She reluctantly surrendered the phone. I glimpsed the chat screen. The last message from Harrison read, "Don't worry, I'm here for you." Back in our bedroom, I used Madison's fingerprint to unlock her phone. Scrolling through her messages with Harrison, my hands began shaking. The suggestive language, the accidental after-school tutoring sessions, the innocent physical contact. This had crossed every appropriate boundary between teacher and student. What is it? Robert asked groggily. I handed him the phone. After reading a few screens, he was wide awake. This. How dare Harrison? We're going to the school tomorrow, I said coldly, rage boiling inside. In my past life, I'd been completely blind, thinking Madison was just going through typical teenage rebellion. Should we talk to Madison first? Robert suggested hesitantly. No, we need evidence first, I said through gritted teeth. She won't listen to us now. We'd only tip them off. The next morning, Madison came out with swollen eyes demanding her phone. You'll get it after school, I said calmly, handing her a packed breakfast. Your father and I have errands. Take the bus today. Where are you going? She asked suspiciously. Adult business. None of your concern. I used her own favorite phrase against her. She left in a huff. Robert and I waited until 9 a.m. to avoid rush hour before heading to school. On the way, Robert remained silent until we neared the school. Sarah, if your predictions come true, will Madison really become that ungrateful person? I gripped the steering wheel, remembering my past life in the hospital when Madison had said coldly, stop faking illness. I have fashion week to attend. Yes, I answered shortly. But not this time. We didn't confront Harrison directly. Instead, we met with Principal Coleman. I claimed concern about Madison's recent academic performance, casually mentioning she seemed particularly devoted to Mr. Harrison. The sharp middle-aged woman immediately caught my meaning. Mr. Harrison is indeed popular with female students, she said carefully. But we have strict policies about teacher-student relationships. Could I review Madison's school activities? Perhaps security footage? I asked. She's been coming home late, claiming extra tutoring. After some hesitation, the principal agreed to show us select security footage. The videos showed Madison frequently staying after school, with Harrison, coincidentally, appearing. While there was no overtly inappropriate behavior, their time alone far exceeded normal teacher-student interaction. This is concerning, the principal said, perspiration on her forehead. I'll speak with Mr. Harrison. No, not yet, I stopped her. I don't want to alert him. But I need a favor. After leaving school, Robert's face was dark with anger. That bastard. Madison's only 17. Stay calm, I patted his hand. Confronting them now will only push Madison toward him. We need to be smarter. On the way home, we ran into our neighbor Mrs. Chen. She greeted us enthusiastically. Sarah. I heard Madison's practice scores are out. How did she do? Not great, I answered briefly. Oh, these kids are under so much pressure. You parents need to be understanding. She lowered her voice. I saw Madison this morning with red eyes. Are you being too strict? Students need a relaxed environment before big tests. I resisted rolling my eyes. Mrs. Chen's daughter had failed her SATs last year because she was too relaxed, staying up all night on her phone. Yet neighbors praised Mrs. Chen as an enlightened parent, while those with standards were labeled authoritarian. Thanks for your concern. We know what we're doing. I pulled Robert away quickly. At home, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything about Harrison. In my past life, I'd known too little about my daughter. This time, I'd keep my eyes wide open. Should we talk to Madison about inappropriate relationships? Robert asked anxiously. Not yet, I shook my head. She won't listen. We need to cut off her contact with Harrison first, then. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Madison's best friend Emma. Mrs. Mitchell, Madison asked me to get her phone. She says it's urgent. I narrowed my eyes. Why doesn't she come herself? She has activities at school. Emma's eyes darted nervously, clearly lying. Tell her if she wants her phone, she comes home and explains her friendship with Mr. Harrison to my face. I emphasized friendship deliberately. Emma's face paled. She hurried away. I could imagine Madison's reaction: panic, anger, then maybe, just maybe, some reflection. Robert watched me worriedly. Isn't this too aggressive? Aggressive? I laughed bitterly. Compared to the path she might take, this is gentle. At 8 p.m., Madison finally came home, face pale but eyes blazing. Give me my phone, she shouted the moment she entered. You had no right to go through it. No right to investigate me at school. So Emma had delivered the message. I looked at her calmly. Because you're a minor and we're your guardians. Your inappropriate relationship with Harrison. Inappropriate, she shrieked, interrupting me. Mr. Harrison is the only one who understands me. You only care about grades, not what I want. He understands you. I sneered. A 40-year-old married man seducing an underage student is understanding? We're just talking. Talking? I pulled up the screenshots on my phone. Can't wait to kiss you, you're so much sexier than my frumpy wife. That's your idea of talking? Madison went white. You invaded my privacy. Madison, Robert said painfully, Harrison is using your innocence. Shut up. Madison screamed hysterically. You don't understand anything. I hate you both. She turned and ran out. Robert started to follow, but I stopped him. Let her cool off. But it's so late. She'll go to Emma's house. I already spoke with Emma's mother. I sank into a chair exhaustedly. She needs time to think. Robert was quiet for a long moment, then said, the lottery numbers. I checked this week's results. I looked up at him. They matched exactly what you gave me. His voice shook slightly. Sarah, can you really see the future? I nodded, eyes filling with tears. So please trust me. We have to change Madison, or she'll destroy herself and us. Robert held me tightly, his body trembling. In that moment, we were finally united. Rain began falling outside. I stared into the dark night, emotions churning. This was just the beginning. I knew bigger storms were coming, but this time, I wouldn't be a blindly doting mother. I wouldn't raise an ungrateful daughter again. But if she could still be saved, I'd pay any price. Chapter 3. The phone rang at 3 a.m. Robert and I bolted upright simultaneously. Unknown number. I answered with a hoarse voice. Is this Madison Mitchell's parent? I'm her mother. This is the West Precinct. Your daughter and friends were involved in an altercation at a karaoke bar. Please come immediately. My hands shook. In my previous life, Madison had been willful but never ended up at a police station. Had my changed approach caused this backlash? Robert was already dressing. What happened? Madison's at the police station. I answered mechanically, mind racing. We need to get her. Under the harsh fluorescent lights, Madison and 3 friends huddled on a bench, faces still angry. Seeing us, a flash of triumph crossed her eyes before she turned away. Mom. They bullied us, she cried preemptively, voice dripping fake victimization. The officer handed me a report. Your daughter and friends mocked other patrons singing. After an argument, she threw drinks and smashed their phone. I scanned the report. Madison's group had insulted people in the next room for singing badly. When confronted, she deliberately spilled drinks and destroyed a phone. How much? Robert asked. Latest iPhone. About $1,200. The officer said. They'll accept compensation instead of pressing charges. I stopped Robert from reaching for his wallet. No, we'll handle this differently. Turning to Madison, I asked calmly, why did you do it? They insulted me first. She widened her eyes, playing victim. That's not what the report says. The cops only listened to them. Her voice rose, drawing stares. You always said you'd have my back. Now when someone bullies me, you side with strangers. I took a deep breath. This was her standard manipulation: create a situation where parents must choose sides, then exploit their love. The old me would have caved immediately. Not anymore. If you think you did nothing wrong, let them press charges. I said evenly. 17 is old enough for legal responsibility. Madison's expression froze. She hadn't expected such hardness. Mom. Are you insane? A record will ruin my college applications. Did you think about consequences when you smashed their phone? I countered. During the standoff, a familiar figure rushed in. Harrison, in a wrinkled shirt, clearly just out of bed. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, I came as soon as students called. He shook Robert's hand enthusiastically while eyeing Madison. Madison's a good kid. This must be a misunderstanding. I noticed Madison brighten at his appearance, body unconsciously leaning toward him. Harrison positioned himself near her, hand on her shoulder a beat too long. Mr. Harrison seems very available for late-night student emergencies, I said pointedly. His hand jerked back as if burned. Emma was worried and called me. Really? I checked Madison's phone. Police had requested access to involved parties' devices. Her last call before the incident was to Harrison. Both Madison and Harrison froze, sweat beading on his forehead. This is... He stammered. We'll discuss this at school. I cut him off coldly, then turned to the officer. We'll pay compensation, with one condition. The officer raised an eyebrow. What condition? These kids stay here reflecting until morning. I said. Since they enjoy staying out all night, let them experience the consequences. Madison shrieked, I'm not staying in this horrible place. Then don't cause trouble. I looked at her calmly. Your choice. Eventually, we signed papers and paid for the phone, but insisted Madison stay until 7 a.m. As we left, I glanced back. She sat curled on the bench, eyes full of hatred, while Harrison stood nearby with a complicated expression. That look made my stomach churn. That wasn't how a teacher should look at a student. The next morning, Robert and I went straight to Principal Coleman's office. As we explained everything, her face grew increasingly grave. Mr. Harrison has indeed violated multiple policies, she said, reviewing our screenshot evidence. Though your daughter seems quite willing. A 17-year-old may not know better. A 40-year-old teacher should, I retorted. The principal sighed. I'll speak with Mr. Harrison. But without concrete evidence, the school's options are limited. I understand. I stood. I only ask one thing, transfer Madison to a different class, away from Harrison. That can be arranged. Mrs. Anderson in class 3 to 4 is very experienced, and several of Madison's middle school friends are there. Leaving the office, Harrison cornered us in the hallway, face dark, his usual polish gone. Mrs. Mitchell, you're destroying my career. No, you're destroying it yourself. I met his eyes directly. Stay away from my daughter, or I'll ensure you can't teach anywhere. Panic flashed in his eyes before he forced composure. Modern education emphasizes equal teacher-student communication. Your authoritarian parenting will only push her away. Oh. I sneered. So modern education includes private late-night, comfort sessions? Telling students you want to kiss them? Harrison's face drained of color. You're making things up. I have the chat logs. I stepped forward, voice dropping low. Harrison, I know Madison isn't your first. What about Lisa, who transferred 3 years ago? Rachel, who suddenly dropped out 2 years ago? Should I continue? In my past life, Madison had mentioned these names casually after college, saying Mr. Harrison's former students all liked him. Now I understood the real story. Harrison stepped back as if seeing a ghost. How do you get out of my daughter's life? I said slowly. Or I'll destroy yours. At home, Madison locked herself in her room. I heard muffled crying and things being thrown, but didn't knock. Some pain must be experienced alone to grow. At dinner, she finally emerged, eyes swollen like peaches. Happy now? Her voice was hoarse. The whole school knows. I got transferred to the loser class. Everyone's laughing at me. It's not a loser class, just a stricter teacher, Robert tried explaining. Mr. Harrison says Mrs. Anderson is a notorious hard ass, she cried hysterically. She'll ruin me. Harrison has no right to judge any teacher, I said coldly. From today, you're forbidden from any contact with him. You can't do that. I'm your mother. I slammed the table. Madison Mitchell, listen carefully. If you see Harrison once more, I'll send you to live with your aunt in Seattle for the rest of senior year. She stared in shock, unable to believe my resolve. Finally, she ran back to her room, slamming the door again. Robert looked at me worriedly. Isn't this too? No, it's not enough. I opened my laptop. We need to cut off all their communication channels. Over the next few days, I took 3 actions. First, I canceled Madison's phone plan, giving her a basic flip phone for emergencies only. Second, I personally drove her to and from school. Third, I contacted Mrs. Anderson, asking her to monitor Madison closely. Madison's rebellion intensified. She stopped doing homework, submitted blank tests, even talked back to teachers. Each time the school called, I calmly supported whatever discipline they recommended. Meanwhile, I began using my future knowledge to build family wealth. I remembered several stocks that would soar during this period and convinced Robert to invest some savings. This tech startup will announce major government contracts next week. Stock price will triple at least, I pointed at the screen. Robert looked skeptical. But it's tanking right now. Trust me, I said firmly. A week later, the company announced the contracts exactly as I predicted. Stock price soared. Robert looked at me with awe. Sarah, you really can see the future. Just fragments, I said vaguely. Enough to improve our lives. Actually, I remembered far more than stock trends. In my past life, I'd obsessively followed financial news because Robert's cancer treatment required massive funds. Now these memories were gold. As our investment returns grew, Robert increasingly trusted my visions. He stopped secretly giving Madison money or helping with her punishment essays. Madison noticed her father's change and became more volatile. One dinner, she suddenly threw down her fork. What's wrong with you both? Her voice shook. You weren't like this before. Dad never let Mom be mean to me. Robert put down his bowl, looking at her seriously. Madison, we love you, but we can't keep spoiling you. You're almost an adult. Time to take responsibility for your actions. Responsibility? She laughed coldly. You don't love me anymore. Because Mom's pregnant with another baby to replace me. Enough. I cut her off sharply. Do you even hear yourself? She was referring to my pregnancy at 40 in the past life. Madison had threatened suicide unless I aborted. I'd given Ina lifelong regret. Now she threw it in my face with the cruelest words. Madison flinched at my reaction but lifted her chin defiantly. Hit a nerve. Go to your room. I pointed down the hall, hands trembling. Now. After she left, I collapsed in my chair, tears flowing. Robert held me, murmuring comfort. She doesn't know what she's saying. No, she knows exactly. I wiped my tears. That's the terrifying part. Late that night, I checked Harrison's social media. His latest post showed a coffee shop photo captioned, missing a certain student. In the corner was a pink hair clip, the one I just bought Madison. My fingers froze over the keyboard. How were they still meeting when I'd cut off all contact? Madison came straight home after school. Unless it was at school. The next morning, I found Mrs. Anderson. She confirmed my suspicions Harrison kept accidentally encountering Madison in the cafeteria, library, even near the girls' bathroom. I've reported it to administration, but they say without evidence, they can't restrict a teacher's movements on campus, Mrs. Anderson said helplessly. Leaving school, I encountered Harrison's wife Patricia at the gate, a gentlewoman who taught at the nearby elementary school. In my past life, she developed severe depression and died by 50. Now I understood why. Mrs. Mitchell. She called out. Perfect timing. Harrison mentioned Madison's been struggling academically. I studied her expression. Deception. The poor woman had no idea about her husband. Yes, that's why we changed her classes, I answered carefully. Harrison's so worried. Says Madison has real potential. She hesitated. He's been coming home late, says he's tutoring students. Do you know which ones? My heart sank. Harrison was clearly using tutoring as cover for meeting Madison. I don't know, I finally said. But Patricia, maybe pay more attention to your husband. Things might not be what they seem. Her face changed, as if to ask more, but she just smiled weakly and left. At home, I decided on harsher measures. The next morning, I went to the school office. I'd like to request off-campus lunch privileges for Madison. I placed prepared documents on the desk. Here are the parental consent forms. The administrator frowned. School policy requires seniors to have lunch on campus. My daughter's been in contact with inappropriate individuals, I said quietly, sliding over screenshots of Harrison's messages. As her mother, I must ensure her safety during lunch hours. Seeing the evidence, the administrator's face changed. She immediately signed the forms. When Madison learned, she exploded with unprecedented fury. You're spying on me. Controlling me. She screamed, smashing everything within reach. I hate you. I hate this family. I watched her tantrum calmly until she collapsed on the floor, sobbing from exhaustion. Done? I handed her water. Starting tomorrow, you'll come home for lunch too. Keep fighting if you want, but nothing will change. She looked up with hatred I'd never seen before. You're not my mother. My real mother wouldn't do this. No, this is real motherhood, I said quietly. Someday you'll understand. That night, Robert held me. Sarah, are we doing the right thing? Madison looked so miserable. Better short-term pain than long-term damage, I leaned against his shoulder. I'd rather she hate me now than become a selfish, cold person later. Outside, early summer rain tapped the windows. Listening to my husband's steady heartbeat while thinking of my daughter's hateful glare, my heart ached. Sometimes the deepest parental love looks exactly like cruelty. Chapter 4. A week later, Madison ran away, leaving only a crumpled note, staying at Emma's for a few days. Don't look for me. I stared at her scrawled handwriting, fingers trembling slightly. She'd pulled this stunt in my past life. I'd always begged her to come home. Should we bring her back? Robert rubbed his right side, face pale. No. I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. Let her taste independence. Robert suddenly doubled over, cold sweat on his forehead. My heart clenched. His liver cancer had started like this in my previous life. Hospital tests confirmed my fears. Early-stage liver cancer requiring immediate surgery. Lucky we caught it early. The doctor pointed at the CT scan. The tumor's only 2 centimeters, excellent prognosis after removal. The night before surgery, Robert lay in the hospital bed and suddenly asked, "Does Madison know?" I shook my head. Since we'd started strict parenting, Madison had been superficially compliant but increasingly cold. 3 days ago, after I confiscated her phone, she'd stormed off to Emma's. Send her a text, he said weakly. I want to know if she still cares about her father. 5 hours after sending the message, Madison finally appeared. She stood in the doorway, not even putting down her backpack. What did the doctor say? She asked, eyes on her phone. Early stage liver cancer. Surgery tomorrow. I watched her face for any concern. Oh. She swiped her phone screen. So, what do you need me to do? The light in Robert's eyes dimmed. Nothing. Go back to Emma's. She nodded and turned to leave without a single comforting word. I followed her to the hallway. Your father's having surgery tomorrow. This is your attitude? You're here, aren't you? She frowned impatiently. I'm not a doctor. What help could I be? The surgery was successful. I sent Madison a photo of Robert in recovery. She replied with one word, K. 3 days passed. Without a single visit. On discharge day, I intercepted her outside Emma's building. Had enough fun? I asked coldly. Your father's coming home today. So? She chewed gum. You two seem fine without me. I stared at her blood-red nail polish and low-cut top nothing I'd bought her. Has Harrison contacted you? Her eyes shifted. None of your business. He's married, and you're 17. He says controlling parents like you are pathetic. She suddenly erupted. After SATs, I'm moving out. You'll never control me again. I slapped her. She held her cheek, eyes full of hatred. I hate you both. She ran off. During Robert's recovery, Madison came home. A few times for clothes, always leaving quickly. Until the day I found an envelope under her mattress while cleaning. Inside were 2 plane tickets to Hawaii purchased by Harrison and Madison for 3 days after SATs. Plus a hotel reservation. 1 king bed. I laughed coldly and replaced the envelope exactly where I'd found it. 2 weeks before SATs, Madison suddenly returned home with an eerie smile. Mr. Harrison got suspended. She stared at me. You reported him? Not me, I said calmly, peeling an apple. His wife Patricia found out. Her face changed. Impossible. He said his wife doesn't care. He also said he only loved you. I handed her a stack of photos. Look how many female students your true love has said the same thing to. The photos showed Harrison intimately embracing different girls in various locations. Madison's hands began shaking. These are fake. Verify them yourself. I turned to leave. She suddenly grabbed my wrist. Mom. Her voice cracked. What should I do? I pulled free. Figure it out yourself. You're 17. Time to take responsibility for your choices. That night I heard muffled sobbing from her room but didn't comfort her. Some lessons must be learned alone. At breakfast, she announced with swollen eyes, I'm going to focus on studying. Robert smiled with relief, but I noticed the cold calculation in her eyes when she looked at him. The day before SATs, Madison became unusually helpful, offering to make soup for Robert. I watched silently, then poured it out when she wasn't looking. In my past life, she drugged his medication to embarrass him at parent-teacher conferences. Sure enough, at midnight I caught her sneaking around the kitchen. Looking for this? I held up the laxatives I'd found in her backpack. Her face went white. How did you? Because I'm your mother. I said coldly. You don't care about your sick father. Why? This sudden kindness? She suddenly screamed hysterically. Yes. I hate you. I hate how cold you've become. I hate that Dad listens to you. I wish you would both just. Just what? I cut her off harshly. Die? So you can inherit the house and savings? She froze, shocked I'd voiced her thoughts so bluntly. Get out. I pointed to the door, voice terrifyingly calm. She laughed coldly, grabbing her pre-packed suitcase. When I can support myself, you'll beg me to come back and I'll refuse. After the door slammed, Robert collapsed on the couch, eyes vacant. What did we do wrong? I held his trembling body, unable to answer. Even with a second chance. I thought I could change things. But some people's selfishness runs bone deep. Stones don't bloom, no matter how much you water them. On SAT day, we saw Madison outside the test center. She wore heavy makeup and gave us a mocking smile. Don't worry, I'll take the test properly, she said loudly. After all, I need good scores to get far away from you. Robert walked away immediately. I took one last look before following. This daughter was rotten to the core. When scores were released, Robert and I sat in the living room, neither mentioning checking results. The phone rang jarringly. Mrs. Anderson calling. Mrs. Mitchell. Madison scores, there's a problem. Her voice was heavy. She bubbled all multiple choice answers in the wrong sequence. Essay portions were left blank. My hand trembled holding the phone. She did it deliberately. We think so too, Mrs. Anderson sighed. She smiled at the proctor when submitting, said she was finally free. After hanging up, Robert asked with red eyes, does she hate us that much? Enough to destroy her own future? I didn't answer. Through the window, I heard a car engine. Through the curtain gap, I saw Madison jumping out of a taxi, followed by the fired Harrison. She wore a revealing dress, face glowing with victory. The doorbell rang. I took a deep breath and answered. Surprise? Madison waved her ring finger smugly. Harrison proposed. We'll marry when I turn 20. For now, we're moving in together. Harrison stood behind her, greasy face full of fake smiles. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell. I'll take good care of Madison. I looked at this absurd couple coldly. What do you want? My things, obviously. Madison pushed past me. Oh, and my child support should be settled, right? Robert shot up. You threw away your future for this creep? Watch your language. Harrison narrowed his eyes. I'm your son-in-law now. Son-in-law? Robert shook with rage. A predator who seduces underage students? Madison ignored him, packing her belongings. Say whatever you want. From today, I'm free. Watching this daughter I'd once cherished, I felt only exhaustion. Madison, are you sure about this? She stopped packing and looked at me challengingly. What? Having regrets? Want to beg me to stay? No. I retrieved documents from my study. These are emancipation papers. Sign them and we're done. No relationship, no obligations. Madison froze, not expecting such finality. The house, savings, insurance, nothing will be yours, I added calmly. Likewise, we won't need your support in old age. Harrison snatched the papers, scanning frantically. This isn't legally binding. I consulted lawyers, I interrupted. Adult children voluntarily severing ties is completely legal. Madison's expression shifted repeatedly before she laughed coldly. Perfect. She signed with a flourish. Robert closed his eyes and signed too. In 5 minutes, 17 years of family bonds were severed. Let's go. Madison took Harrison's arm. Darling, we're finally completely free. Watching their car disappear, Robert and I stood in silence. Finally, he asked quietly, is it really over? She chose her path, I squeezed his hand. We need to live our own lives now. A week later, we sold the house full of memories and left the city. Using my past life financial knowledge, we thrived in stocks and real estate. Our wealth grew exponentially. 6 months later, on a Maldives beach, we received Madison's text, I'm pregnant but can't afford prenatal care. Send money. Robert stared at the screen for a long time before replying, we have no relationship. Best wishes. Then he blocked her number. 3 months later, on a Mediterranean cruise, I discovered I was pregnant. Nearly 40, this unexpected blessing brought tears of joy. This time. Robert carefully touched my still flat stomach. We won't repeat our mistakes. I smiled and nodded. This time, we'd raise a child who understood love and gratitude, not a refined egoist. Our younger daughter Rebecca was born in a Swiss private hospital. Unlike her sister, she was naturally cheerful, reaching for everyone with tiny hands. We traveled the world with her first steps by the Seine, first words in a Tuscan vineyard. When Rebecca turned 4, we decided to return home. After 4 years away, the city felt foreign. We bought a villa in a new district, far from old memories. Until one day, I ran into Emma's mother at the mall. Sarah? She called out in surprise. Is it really you? You're back. After pleasantries, she hesitated. Do you know about Madison? I shook my head. We deliberately blocked all information about our elder daughter for 4 years. Emma's mother sighed. She's not doing well. That Harrison showed his true colors after marriage, gambling, drinking, domestic violence. Madison miscarried at 5 months after he beat her. Doctors say she probably can't conceive again. My chest tightened, but I quickly calmed. That was her choice. She works as a grocery store cashier now. Harrison took all her money and disappeared. She watched me carefully. Would you like to see her? No need. I picked up Rebecca from the toy display. We have our own life. But fate wouldn't let us escape. Another rainy night, the doorbell rang urgently. On the security monitor, Madison stood outside. I don't know how she found our address. Her gaunt face was almost unrecognizable, cheeks hollow, dark circles prominent. Mom. I know you're home. Her voice broke. Please, let me in. After hesitating, I opened the door. Madison stood soaking wet, freezing when she saw the little girl in my arms. Is this your sister, Rebecca? I said evenly. Jealousy flashed in her eyes, quickly replaced by pleading. Mom. I know I was wrong. That bastard tricked me. I have nothing now. I had the nanny take Rebecca upstairs, then poured Madison hot tea. What do you want? I want to come home. She said tearfully. You can't really abandon me. Robert came downstairs, visibly shaken seeing our eldest daughter, but quickly composed himself. We severed our relationship. Dad. Madison dropped to her knees. I was young and stupid. I really know I was wrong now. Please forgive me. Looking at this once proud daughter now groveling in the dirt, I felt oddly calm. You don't know you were wrong. You're just out of options. She froze, tears suspended on her face. How can you say that? I'm sincerely repenting. Are you? I pulled out my phone, showing a video. Last week you called us cold-blooded on social media, saying we're rich but won't help our daughter. Madison went white. How did you? You came because you heard we're back and wealthy. I cut to the heart of it. If we were poor today, would you have come? Caught out, her expression twisted. Yes. So what if I want money? You gave birth to me, should support me forever. Robert shook his head disappointedly. Still so selfish. Selfish? Madison laughed hysterically, pointing upstairs. What about that? Little brat? You abandoned me to have a replacement. Enough. I cut her off sharply. Leave. Now. Never. She lunged toward the stairs. I want to see the little bitch who stole my parents. Robert grabbed her, forcibly dragging her to the door. In the struggle, her jacket slipped, revealing arms covered in bruises and cigarette burns. See this? That bastard did this. She screamed hysterically. Happy now? This is what you wanted, right? I calmly pressed the security call button. No, this is what you chose. Security arrived quickly, dragging the struggling Madison out. Her curses echoed in the rain. You'll pay for this. I cursed that little brat to die badly. Door closed, Robert and I stood in silence until Rebecca's sweet voice came from upstairs. Mommy, who was yelling? I rushed upstairs, pulling her into my arms. Nobody, sweetheart. Just a lost lady. She seemed so sad, Rebecca said innocently. Should we help her? Robert and I exchanged glances, both seeing relief in each other's eyes. This child was different. Some people don't deserve help, sweetie, I explained gently. Because they never change. Rebecca nodded, not quite understanding, but was quickly distracted by her bedtime story. Outside, the rain intensified, but inside was warm. As spring. Later we heard Madison was detained for a few days for disturbing the peace. After release, she vanished into the city's crowds. Sometimes late at night, I remember that sweet baby who smiled at me, that little girl who first called me Mama. But Rebecca's sleep-talking or Robert's snoring always pulls me back to reality. We finally learned that love shouldn't be blind sacrifice but principled giving. Some blood relatives are destined to be strangers. As for the girl once named Madison Mitchell, she's buried with our past in memory's graveyard. The end.